and welcome to Pia Pops Off, a podcast where I talk about anything and everything, usually pop culture. Today, we are popping off with a very special guest. One of my friends, I know her from her content on TikTok. She has a podcast. Her name is Selle, and her podcast is called Who Asked Me? And oftentimes I asked her because I love her takes on things. If I am watching something, because we watch similar things like Bravo or like we have a similar taste in things. And I am not finding the take that I desire. I go to her page and I'm like, I know Zelle's talking about this shit. And 9 times out of 10, she is. And 9 times out of 10, that's the goddamn take I'm looking for. She doesn't go with necessarily what everybody else is going with, which is what I really like about her. It's not that she's purposely going the opposite direction. I just know that if the take is coming from her, it's not being persuaded or swayed by the majority. It is 100% from her mind. And even if I don't agree with it, I like that for the most part, I can understand how she got there because I feel like she operates on fact, not feelings, if that makes sense. So when I was watching the Lisa Frank documentary, which is what we're popping off about today, Glitter and Greed, the Lisa Frank story, that documentary took me through all these loops. And I was like, I got to do a fucking podcast about this. This documentary is literally not just rainbows and unicorns. And I was like, who would be the perfect person to talk about this with? And she popped into my head because I know that this is such a complex, non-linear perspective. I feel like it's not black and white. It's so much in the gray. And I needed a person that I felt like could really clearly articulate what I mean. Cause sometimes I don't even complete a thought. I thought she would be great to keep me on track and also bring a perspective that maybe I missed or we all missed. And I think that this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Before we get into the episode, we have a little Pia Pop Business. Yes, we love this part of the segment. I want to start off before we get into the glitter and the greed, a very serious topic. This week, unfortunately, in LA, where I live, we had fires, wildfires, and they popped up everywhere. The 2 biggest ones were the Palisade fires and the Eaton fires, but there are a lot of other fires mixed in there, and they're still ongoing. This started last Tuesday, and it's currently Sunday, and it doesn't look like we got a lot of the fires out, but the 2 big ones, the Palisade fires and the Eaton fires, they're still going. They've been contained in some capacity, but they have caused a lot of devastation. It's been really hard here in LA. I was fortunate enough to live in an area where I did not have to evacuate, where I did not lose everything that I possessed, where I did not lose anybody close to me. But that was not the case for a lot of people here in LA. LA is going to take a very long time to rebuild. A lot of people lost a lot. And the air quality alone here is horrendous. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that and acknowledge the ways in which that we can help to rebuild LA, to help with people who lost so much in these incredibly devastating fires. So in our show description, I will be putting links in ways in which if you can donate or your money or donate your time to help with the rebuilding of loss for the people who lost everything in the LA fires. So all of that will be in the description box below. And if you're not already, please hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio version, if you could please rate me 5 stars and leave a positive review. That really does go a long way. So thank you for everybody who has already done that. I have received so much love. We're on our 5th episode. We are on episode number 5. I really need to remember to start the introduction with what episode we're on, but we're on episode number 5. And I've been having such a blast, and I can't wait to continue to putting out these episodes for you. We started out the podcast with releasing episodes on Tuesday, but you know what? I realized releasing them on Wednesday is just a lot better for me. So they're going to be released now on Wednesday because I want to make sure that I'm able to get these out right at the beginning of a Wednesday. And I also am a perfectionist and I like to edit the visual version with extras. So if you are only listening on audio, you should go over to the YouTube and look at the visual because I put a little extra Pia Pop facts and also a lot of really fun graphics to help guide the story. Watch both, but watch and listen. Watch and listen. All right. That's enough for the Pia Pop business. Let's get into the glitter and the greed. Let's get into the real story of Lisa Frank. Well, thank you, Zell, for coming on. You were one of the first people that I started listening to anybody's take and hot takes and opinions on anything because you're usually correct.
I have a method to my madness, and sometimes people don't see where I'm coming from, and that's fine. But they also usually are like, I get what she's saying. I just don't agree with it. And I'm like, that's all I'm asking.
Oh, you know what? That's super fair because again, when I found you on TikTok first, it was your take on Summer House. And I had Jordy Cray from TikTok on.
Oh yeah.
And
love him.
Love him. You and him are like one of my two favorite creators because you both really don't give a fuck about saying your opinions, even if it goes against the masses, which I really appreciate. Yeah. And I mean, again, like it's not necessarily like, oh, I agree with every little thing you say, but what I do always agree with is how you got there. And oftentimes it's about fact, not feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that I appreciate. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah. My Summer House takes. I am like, never once have I said that Lindsay is not nuts. Okay. She is very nuts, but I do and never once have I said like, she is a completely rational human being who is so logical. But I think the hate that she gets is from women, other women, is steeped in them actually not being girls. And how she communicates it may not be the best, but I do be seeing where Lindsay come from. Okay.
Thank you. So we covered that because when Jordan and I recorded, the main thing was I wanted to see, because he's team Melissa and I'm team Teresa. So being team Teresa is very much in the minority, as well as some of these other more, in my opinion, think outspoken women on Bravo, and Lindsay Hubbard would be one of them. I'm team Lindsay. So I had a segment where we did Bravo beefs and what team are you on, so we can kind of see if we align on some of the Bravo beefs. And then we went to the main one, which was discussing Teresa versus Melissa. Neither of us really changed teams, but I think we did have a respect for the other person's point of view for the most part. But Lindsay did come up, and those were some of my points. Like, I want to be critical of Lindsay on some things because she is not a that person, but the amount of vitriol, hate, ruminates off of the fans of Bravo, mostly women, to me becomes unwarranted, where I don't even have time to even break down some of the points that I want to about Lindsay and her bad behavior, because all the other stuff is just what?
It's not aligned. And you've heard me say it before. If you hate Lindsay, then you have to hate Kyle Cook too, because Kyle and Lindsay are two peas in a Leo pod. If you are a fan of mine, if you listen to me, you know that you've heard me say this before. And that's what I don't like, is when people are like, love Kyle, love him so much. Oh, or he's just so funny. I don't necessarily like him, but he makes the show. That is literally the same thing that could be applied to Lindsay. They are the same person. And Gabby even said it. Gabby said, when I think of male Leos and female Leos, Kyle is a male Leo to a T, and Lindsay is a female Leo to a T. They are so much alike. And I'm like, that's all I'm saying. My main thing about like standing up for Lindsay is, first of all, when I'm standing up for Lindsay against Carl, it's always going to be that, because I don't like when how people infantilize Carl just because he's got, addiction issues. I don't like that shit. You can have addiction issues and still be wrong. Okay. With how you treat people.
Thank you.
Shit pisses me off. But also, like, when it comes to like, I'm going to tell you, be honest, I have no dog in the fight of team Melissa and team Teresa.
Okay.
I've outwardly said, like, I think they're both extremely immature. And I think, the term "no one wins when the family feuds" really comes to play there, because it is really, really baffling to me that those two grown adults cannot put, they're their only siblings, Joe and Teresa, cannot put their stupid beefs aside. Nothing that they argue about is so serious that they cannot speak anymore.
I agree.
It's so nuts to me.
I
And
agree.
I just think that they both, Teresa and Melissa, have done things that are out of line, and no one is going to be the bigger person. That's what kills me between them. No one is going to be the bigger person.
No.
I like when it comes to Lindsay versus Paige and all of that, it hurts me because Lindsay and Paige are actually pretty similar. They're actually pretty similar. Paige just comes in a prettier package, and I'm using air quotes there for anybody who can't see this.
Right.
I'm not saying that Paige is prettier than Lindsay. It's just she
It's
is
her
more
delivery is
buttoned up.
more palatable.
It is more palatable. Paige is like that girl in school that you always wanted to be friends with, but that doesn't make her any less of like a mean girl. I don't really think Paige nor Lindsay are mean girls.
I agree.
I just think that they are very similar. They have strong opinions, and they're going to ride for the people that they ride for.
Absolutely.
And they are often riding on the wrong side. Where Paige kills me is that she let her dislike of Lindsay cloud so many things to where she was like befriending Danielle and like co-signing things that she should have not. And Paige knew in her heart of hearts that like, I don't actually co-sign this. I think she even said at the anniversary party, like, Danielle needs to get it together. Like, but she couldn't because she was like, but I still hate Lindsay. And that's what I don't like.
I agree. And you hit all of the major points that I was putting out in defense of Lindsay, or even in that whole argument about Teresa versus Melissa, because it's just so true. I literally said Kyle is, to me, the male version of Lindsay. And you can see it from season 1 to current season. Just align all the same things. They are both they're constantly in toxic relationships. They are very much aggressive drunks, but they're also very fucking fun. And these are all like, you know what I mean? But for some reason, when it comes to Kyle, we don't give a fuck. But when it comes to Lindsay, she is the spawn of Satan.
Oh, you know, I stay on Kyle's neck. You know, I stay on.
I have like I would say the past like 2 to 3 seasons, I'm on Kyle's neck because I loved Kyle as well. I've always loved Lindsay. I loved Kyle. But then it got to a point where Kyle, in my opinion, wasn't growing, and I did see growth in Lindsay. But no one acknowledges that, and I don't find that fair.
No, it's not fair. And you know what? Because there's not a huge difference. Actually, there is a huge difference. Lindsay said, "How many sandwiches have you made for me?" Okay. There's a couple factors there. One, the relationship with her and Stravy wasn't really great in the first place. And you add pandemic, they could not go anywhere that season. They couldn't have any other people over. There were other huge fights that season that like stemmed from that. Kyle insults Amanda often, right?
Often.
The huge people being more like, she's such a monster for how many sandwiches have you made for me versus summer's supposed to be fun. Amanda, not fun. People have allowed Kyle to market off of disrespecting Amanda. Amanda has allowed it as well. And I always say, I can't be more mad at your man than you. Okay.
Thank you.
I really can't. But I think I think my friend Chai have discussed this. Maybe it wasn't her, but like if my partner marketed and turned something that hurtful that he said to me into like this huge thing that like is now so big that we forgot the root of it, I would hate it. I would never get over that shit.
Yeah.
I would never get over the fact that you profited and you marketed off of disrespecting me and telling me I'm not fun when I was simply telling you that you are not being a good partner to me.
Yeah. And
that's the shit Kyle gets away with. And that's what pisses me off.
Kyle, and I'm sorry, circling back to what you originally said, so does Carl.
Yes.
And so does Carl. He like people act like they have, I'm gonna quote the person that I freaking hate and I usually don't like to fucking
amnesia. Yep.
Pretend amnesia.
She ate with that one. She ate
with that one, but then Erica ate her right the fact
and she did.
Back up.
Yeah, she did because she
couldn't keep up.
She got scared. I would have said, no, I use the words right, pretend amnesia.
She could have really went down in history for that, but then she cowered like like the little bitch she is. Like, I'm like, come on, you cannot, if you say something so iconic like that, you have to stand 10 toes down. Mm-hmm. You have to, because then you just look weaker, like, oh.
Because I would have followed up with I can't tell you what's in your mind and if you really do remember or not, but I could say it's convenient that you don't remember right now.
Yeah. And if you don't know who made that almost iconic quote, that would be the one that we try not to to talk about the Voldemort of Bravo, that would be Teddy Mellencamp. Yes.
The gnat.
The nasty.
Yeah. But yeah, Carl does the same thing. And it's beyond frustrating because Carl does have the issues that he has. And it's just like, okay, we get it. Like, but everything does not relate back to your sobriety.
Yeah.
And I think it's dangerous and it plays into a lot of stereotypes that he cannot be held accountable because of his sobriety.
Yeah.
Like Lindsay, I can't tell you if you feel like somebody is going to make you drink, but that is not that person's fault.
Yes.
That's not that person's fault. And that's something that's not fair to say whatsoever. Yes, it's your responsibility to say, like, if I think having this person in my life is going to take me to a point where I might drink again, but your sobriety and you not being able to stick to it is not anybody else's fault.
And what's annoying about that particular situation, in my opinion, would be the fact that Lindsay did stop drinking for a period of time, almost a year, and it still wasn't good enough for her castmates or the fans, because then it became, well, she's not being her authentic self. She doesn't really want to stop drinking. She's just doing it for Carl. And that means that it's just not being herself. And how can she be in a relationship with somebody if she's not being herself? And it's like, okay, so then she starts integrating drinking back into her life because she herself said it wasn't necessarily a permanent thing, but she was trying to do this in solidarity with Carl in the early stages of his sobriety. So then she integrates drinking in again, and then all of a sudden she's a monster and how can she get drunk around Carl and all these? I was like, you just don't want her to be with Carl.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what she does. You don't think that they should be together, which they should not have been.
No, they shouldn't have.
But that's not my business, and it's not y'all's business. That's for them to figure out.
And it wasn't all on one of them.
Correct.
It was not all on one of them. It's just, and Paige has gotten it a little bit, which I don't agree with also with breaking up with
Me
Craig.
neither.
I completely agree with her breaking up with Craig if she felt like that was and you know what? I don't feel like Craig was blindsided. And I made the point, Raven made the point, why is Craig allowed to be blindsided, but Lindsay was not allowed to be? Because I have literally watched Craig lies. He lies when he wakes up. When he sat on Southern Charm like 2 weeks ago and was like, Paige and I decided to freeze my sperm. And then he literally in the next scene told Paige, hey, I froze my sperm. So you and Paige did not decide to freeze your sperm. You decided to freeze your sperm and told Paige that you did it. And she was like, huh?
I mean, I have the theory, and I think I've seen this going around on the internet when it comes to Paige and Craig's breakup and why the timing was, because he's like, oh, 1 minute we're going into the holidays and, the next thing we're not together. And that's where he became blindsided. But things like that, freezing your sperm and then telling Paige after the fact and then putting out a narrative that you guys did this together.
Right.
I think puts an unfair pressure on Paige to get married. And pregnant. And I feel like it's almost an emotional manipulation and forcing her into something that she's not ready for. And she has been very vocal about not being ready for. And he's acting as if he's on Paige's timeline, but really he is trying to speed up her timeline. And I think she had gotten to a point where I think that, so my theory is, I think that he absolutely bought a ring. And I think she was going to propose to her very soon, probably before the end of the year. And that freaked her the fuck out because she wasn't ready.
Something that I think is definitely notable is that like Paige seems to do this. Perry was ready to marry her. And she was like, so like, I think it's fair. Maybe Paige realized like the actual act of like being married and being someone's wife and taking that next step in life isn't something I'm not ready for whatever reason. But she is absolutely correct in saying like, I am not ready and I'm not going to make myself ready. I'm really not. I'm fine with my life now. I don't want to go from New York to Charleston is a huge jump. It's a huge jump. This is fine for a weekend for me, but like I just can't get with it. You know what I mean? And like the whole blindsiding thing, I always say hindsight is 2020. I hated people being like Lindsay was not blindsided. Just look at what was going down. In the same respect, Craig was not blindsided either. Again, they weren't even living together.
No, they weren't even in the same state.
How come Lindsay should have picked up on all of the things with Carl and how he was detaching and all this shit, but Craig whose girlfriend didn't even live with him, who like he literally said, "Oh, I'm getting my sperm frozen." He did that on his own. He shouldn't have picked up on it. Like, I don't
Right.
like those double standards. And Craig famously said when Carl and Lindsay broke up, maybe when she looks back on the season, she'll understand that it wasn't that big of a shock. Okay, well, maybe when you look back at this shit, Craig, that you will understand that it's not that big of a shock. I also don't feel bad for Craig because he will be fine.
He will be
I
fine.
promise you, Craig will be in
Look,
a new
he's already being
relationship.
fine. Like all the people backing him and then complete. And you know what? And I think this is going to be a real wake up call for Paige. And I know she's talked about it on Giggly Squad. She I don't think she ever thought that she could ever receive the type of hate that Lindsay receives.
Yeah.
And she still hasn't received it
She still
in any capacity that Lindsay receives it. But I think that this probably, this taste of it, this little baby taste that she got of what Lindsay gets all the time, I guarantee this will make her relationship with Lindsay even stronger. I can already tell it before this whole thing. It would, the whole cast seems to have shifted their relationship with Lindsay, which I'm really excited to see on the upcoming season. But yeah, I really think that this will give Paige a fresh perspective and something, or maybe help her for once, for real, let go of some of this resentment and animosity she's built up for Lindsay, because she has gotten a taste of what it's like to be on the other end unjustly.
Yeah. And you know what? I think also, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is Lindsay's last season. Lindsay has a child. Lindsay has a daughter now. You know what I mean? The recipe, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last season that we see the Summer House cast as it is. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Paige. I really want Kyle and Amanda and Carl I want this to be their last season. And they're all working on things that I think they kind of know in their heart as well, that it's their last season. Because
I think they should shift it. They should shift it like they should have shifted VPR a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because you could keep the same cast, including Lindsay, if we move it to the city.
Yeah. And we move it to them popping in. Right. When you would love to get a glimpse of like Kyle coming in for a weekend, Lindsay coming in for a weekend, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The shift that they have, this Bravo being has this problem of like keeping things too long and not shaking things up.
Yeah.
You know, and Sam really shit the bed. I'm sorry. Sam really shit the bed with choosing to align herself with Corey, her boyfriend. I hate to see the girlies go out like that. I really do, because I think she could have been great.
Maeve, I enjoyed watching her so much. I really did.
I liked her. I think she had depth. I think it was really well. But yeah, I think that everything is shifted towards Lindsay because, one, you took the Carl relationship out of all of it. And then she is getting pregnant. She has a baby. We're seeing her in a different light now. I don't think we're ever going to go back to those times. I see that the cast has been, really, really supportive of her in motherhood and things like that. And it's just, unfortunately, Summer House is the premise of it is for a younger dynamic. You know what I mean? I'm 32 going on 33. I probably would be like, this is probably getting to be where it's at for me with this shit.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
The only person that is not seeming to have any type of effect would be Kyle. Kyle is happy to do this for the rest of his life. That is a problem. That is an absolute problem. Amanda has not wanted to do this show for at least 3 years. This woman is she's ready to live the life Craig wants. Like, she wants to be married. She wants to have kids. She wants the house in Connecticut. She's ready for that life. That's what she wants to do.
A lot of their shit is tied up into Summer House, though. And, I was having this conversation with somebody else. I work in service. I run a bar. I literally am the general manager of a bar. And I have so many seltzers coming at me. So many canned drinks coming at me. The market is so oversaturated. When he started Loverboy, it was like the idea, the premise is good. However, I remember when he first started, it was kind of what he talked about was that it took a lot of like the bad stuff out, that like the fillers and the artificial stuff that gives you such a bad hangover.
Okay.
And that gives you, bad stomach issues, because I think Amanda has or had some stomach issues. So that's what he said, or that's what they had said that it came from. And I've had a Loverboy and I've been hungover after drinking Loverboys. Nothing is going to stop you from being hungover. And now they're also stepping into infused drinks, so that are non-alcoholic but have like THC and CBD.
Right.
At the end of the day, the market is saturated. I need to know why I should carry Loverboy at my bar. One of my reps messed up and sent me a case of some seltzer I had never heard of, two friends or two sisters or something like that. The taste, I was like, wow, this is so good. I think it's better than a High Noon. I think it's better than a White Claw. I think it's better than this. However, I couldn't sell it. Why? Because I'm like, hey, why don't you try this? It's a seltzer. This is what it is. And people are like, well, you have High Noon, so I'll just take that. I'm not going to sit here and say why. It's a hard market. It's an oversaturated market. We had the seltzers at first, and then it's just everybody makes their own seltzer.
Yeah, it is.
Loverboy, as far as I know, it also isn't owned by like a Smirnoff or a Budweiser or anything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're upside down. Remember all those seasons we just saw cases upon cases upon cases
yes
of Loverboys in the house? And
I feel so sorry for that cast because they are so forced to drink that. And I have had a
100%.
Loverboy as well. And it's not that it's bad or anything. It's just nothing in my opinion, because I live in LA. So I went to Something About Her, and Something About Her carries Loverboy. So I was like, you know what? To kill two birds with one stone. I've been wanting to try it for years because it's really not that easily accessible, to be honest with you.
It's not.
Loverboy. That's one. And so I was like, you know what? I have been so curious about what the taste of it is because it's been shoved down my throat for years at this point. And I tasted it. One, like there was like glue all over it or something. Like, you know, like sometimes there's certain packaging. Like it was just like, I was like, okay, like I don't know. There's like plastic and stuff on it. I don't know what that is. And then also the taste was just average. I was like, having one is fine, but I could not sit there all damn day and drink this.
No, it's not. And, you know, it's hard because like liquor laws change state by state. And where I personally think that, I don't want to say they messed up, because I know like you have product, you sit on it, you don't want to sit on it, you want to start making money and you want to start profiting.
Right.
The issue is I live technically in Southern Illinois, but I work in St. Louis, right? So like it takes me 20 minutes to get from Southern Illinois, where I live, to St. Louis. A lot of people work and do that commute as they do in other states. Loverboy was in Illinois before it was in Missouri. And I don't mean like, it was in Missouri or it was in Illinois for like a month and then it came to Missouri. No, it was a good like 6 months to a year before I started seeing Loverboy being sold in Missouri. I at one point was like, you know, I told my friends I was going to bring the Loverboy over, but I can't get in Missouri. I lived on the Missouri side at the time. And so the closest place that sold it was this like a town like 40 minutes away. And so I was like, I feel so bad. I'm going to this Bravo party. I said I was going to bring it. I was like, fuck it. I'll just go. And halfway in the drive, I was like, I can't believe I'm driving this far to get a fucking Loverboy when I literally could go and get any other seltzer.
Yeah.
Any other seltzer. And, you know, Kyle's getting mad at Craig for working with the Toasts, Claudia Austree's husband. Canned seltzer brand and everything like that. It's just, he's getting so mad and so nervous because he does need to. And he kind of said that. He was like, I'm upside down. Like I'm.
And, you know, I recently found out because I mean, I'm still not going to excuse Hannah Berner's behavior on her last season of Summer House, but I recently learned when she was on, I forget whose podcast she was on. It might have been Chicks in the Office or Skinny Not Fat. It's one of them. She was on one of those podcasts. And she was pretty much like the real fallout between her and Kyle that season, that the reason why there was really tension, which was never talked about on camera, we never were at all like even hinted at, was the fact that she had just signed a deal with Truly, which is Truly, and which is another seltzer company, huge seltzer company, and he felt betrayed by that. He felt like, how dare you be an ambassador for a seltzer company when I do seltzer? Oh crap! This is like making me upgrade. Hold on 1 second. How do I upgrade this? Technology.
Oh my God. Zoom is something else. Yeah, that'll only let you record for 40 minutes.
So annoying.
It is.
Oh, I'm not doing that. Hold on. I'm going to like close out and call you back.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
Okay. I don't even know where we left off, but I feel like we were really
talking about Hannah and the Truly.
yeah.
Here's the thing, though, I knew about that. And I was like, and like you said, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it also does not excuse her behavior because, like, the
Absolutely.
one thing I keep going back to with Hannah is that whole like conversation with her and her dad, or like, or Kyle, when she was like, you kind of remind me of your dad. And he was like, okay, but I'm not your dad or whatever. And she was like, don't fucking talk about my family. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
But, and then also, I actually was on Hannah's side too, because like when they got into it at the dinner table and Hannah said something like, he can talk to you like that to Amanda, but he's not about to talk about me, and then walked away and Amanda threw that plate or whatever. I was like, okay, you ain't finna throw no plate at me because yo man is rude to you. You got me fucked up. Fucked up. But Hannah made a lot of mistakes. Like, she should not have been telling online, like podcasts and stuff. Like, she just kept running her mouth. She was saying,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm the only one on the cast that doesn't take Adderall and da da. It's like, okay, girl, we know that. But like, yeah, these people aren't gonna fuck with you because like you just yapping.
Yeah, you're running your
Okay.
mouth.
But when it comes to like the lover boy and the seltzers and everything, I do feel them there. I know Paige has said something about it too. Like, he's not paying us. He is not paying us to be exclusively like, it's not, he's did not make it so that we could only drink lover boy. If he had a contract for me, if he, you know, could come up off some coin for me, then absolutely. But that's not the case because he can barely come off some coin for himself.
Yeah.
So I'm with them there. I would have been like, I'm listen, you're a businessman. I'm not arguing with you about this, Kyle. Pay me or don't control what's in my hand.
I completely agree. So why should I turn down an opportunity? And I'm sorry, Truly is way bigger than Loverboy.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes financial sense for me to take this opportunity. And
Yeah.
I don't and you know what? Kyle doesn't care about anybody but himself. And he don't
No.
and like he doesn't even care about what Amanda, his own wife, would like to
No.
do, her aspirations that she would like to do outside of Loverboy.
Yeah, no.
He has a fucking fit and then says, well, I would like to be a DJ. And now he's doing that. Like, you need to focus on this Loverboy business and leave the DJing. Well, maybe not. I was going to say leave it up to DJ James Kennedy, but you know, he needs, that's a whole nother.
It is makes me irate the way that Kyle can operate and do all of the things that he has wanted to do. Loverboy, DJing. And when Amanda says, I would like to make a swimsuit line for, you know, girls with big boobs or whatever. And I'm be honest, I am very interested to see the price point of Amanda's swimsuit line because I think that is such a great avenue for her.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised none of the other women have like gotten like swimsuit contracts or like anything, but Amanda looks great in a bikini. Like, let's not sit here and lie. And she has really cute ones, even the ones that are just more basic. Like the swimwear thing, I think is very, very a good avenue for her. And I know she's working. She is like the creative director, which she's partnered with somebody. I think those are good avenues for her. I don't particularly love the way Amanda dresses. For me, like, it doesn't resonate with me because I have a different body type than Amanda. But I love to see her going after the things that she wants to do. But hearing just the snippets of Kyle, like when she says, this is what I want to do, blah, blah, and he says, you don't even get out of bed or you're on the couch or blah. I don't think Amanda is lazy at all. I think they have different work ethics. And I am a person that kind of resonates more with Kyle's work ethic of like, go, 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 and don't really stop, know where to stop. And I actually really admire my girlfriend, my partner. She is really good at being like, this is a hard stop for me. We're not working. I'm not doing any of this. Like, I am not like, this is a break. This is relaxed time. I don't do great at that. So I like to have that in a partner, but Kyle is Kyle and he can do whatever he wants and, you know, kind of hold up their dreams and stuff for what he wants. But when Amanda says, you know, oh, I want to, you know, explore doing a swimsuit line. I want to explore this. It's, oh, really? Like, blah, blah, blah. I just, okay, fuck off, Kyle.
Yeah, it kind of almost feels like he thinks that she's just saying this as an excuse to not work or like, this is an afterthought. Like, oh, all of a sudden you want to do a swimsuit line. That's why you're not showing up for your actual job. I don't know. Kyle pisses me off. He's just.
Well, if we want to break it down, if we want to be so honest, Kyle has employed his best friend and his wife. And low-key, his best friend and his wife say the same damn thing about working with him.
That's facts, actually.
They say the same damn thing about working with him. And then his turn is, oh, they're lazy. Oh, they do this. And high-key, low-key, Carl was like, yo, I'm not getting paid for these extra promotions. I'm not getting paid to do XYZ. Carl had a point when he had his qualms about Loverboy.
Right.
He did not communicate them properly, and then he let Lindsay take the fall.
That whole
and
situation.
And he went crawling back to Loverboy when him and, like, you don't have, unlike Amanda, you don't, Carl, you don't have any dreams and aspirations. I feel so strongly about him saying he wants to open a non-alcoholic sober bar.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who works in the business, okay, I work very closely with my owners. I probably work more closely with my owners than any other GM does. So I do know things. Like, it is very, and just, I've been in this business for a long time. It is a fact that most bars and restaurants do not profit in the first year. That when you are going to open a bar or restaurant, any financial advisor, any person will tell you, do not expect to profit in the first year. Even myself, I do all of the ordering. I do all of this. I know I do payroll. I know how much it takes to run a fucking bar.
Yeah.
It is way more than anything else. And then you have like promotion. You have to say, why come to this bar over another one? And I'm just going to be honest, where people can make cocktails at home and things like that, they can make mocktails at home even easier. I just made a whole mocktail menu, and it wasn't hard.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard. And it's a lot cheaper. I probably shouldn't say this because I run a bar, but it's a lot cheaper to do the mocktails at home.
Yeah. And then also, I just feel like if you're gonna have a dry bar, you're gonna have to have some like food. And then
you have to. Honestly,
at least a small menu, and that's still gonna take a lot. It's a whole other. I work in the service industry myself. I like for 10 plus years, and I just know that that's just a big feat in itself.
It is. Have you ever worked at a bar or with no food?
No. And
okay, I have.
Oh God.
And guess what? We have food now.
Because that's the thing is, unless you're going to have a policy where they can bring food into your establishment, because I've been to places where they allow you to do that. I don't love it as a patron because, again, it's like I feel like I'm doing extra work to do that, but. Like, you don't have a little nosh. You don't got a fry up in here.
Exactly. A hot dog. Like, something. And that's the point. So then, of course, when it's a little more, it's way clear. And I don't know about other states because obviously these rules change throughout. But when a lot of places you can't bring your own food to a restaurant. Right. Not because, like, obviously for the obvious
health and safety.
Yeah. For the obvious reasons, like, we have food here. You need to buy the food here. Yeah. But a lot of people don't realize it's a health and safety thing. Like, because if and when you get food poisoning, you can look at the restaurant and there's checks and balances. It's not when people are like, oh, you work in the service industry and things like this. Have you ever fucking taken a ServSafe test? Have you ever, like, the things I have to know?
I currently am working in the service industry. I will be going to work after this podcast. And I've had to take so many certifications this year.
Yeah.
By the way, mind you, again, I've been in the service industry for over 10 years. These things only last for a certain amount of time. Yeah. And then they add new requirements on all the time, depending on what state you're in. So I literally just had to do this. And you have to do other types of training too. But like, just so many different things. Like, and their staff has to do other types of training. So not even just food related training. You have to do trainings on like proper workplace behavior. Yeah. All these different things. So then, like, adding all these like things that they add on, it's like really difficult. And so that's what Lindsay's trying to explain to him.
Yeah.
To Carl. Having a brick and mortar is really tough. It's tough. Yep. And it's not going to just be making non-alcoholic cocktails. There's going to be a lot of other red tape, and it's not worth it.
It's not worth it if you're not going to stick to it. If you being Carl, you have a tendency to like not stick to things. And when things are, you have an accountability problem.
He does. And he has not proven that. The thing is, in that same argument that people are not, they just decided to omit the first half of the reason why she got to the point of why she said what she said and not supporting the brick and mortar of this bar, the sober bar, is because she helped finance him to take this very expensive course that I believe was like $100,000 or something, some astronomical number of that nature, to be able to figure out what he wanted to do in life. And he did nothing with it for a year. He's a dreamer, and he doesn't follow through.
Yeah. I don't think people understand like the financial stress. When they say financial stress is a huge thing, I know firsthand it played a big part in my marriage and partially why I'm getting divorced now. Just because watching somebody being with a dreamer, and I can honestly say that is what my ex-husband was. He is a very talented guy. He can make things from scratch. He's a jack of many, many trades. With that as well, he's a great talker. And sometimes the follow-up is not there. And I see that in Carl as well. And then he does not have bad intent. So when things when things go wrong, and when things like, for example, the class that you didn't do anything with, no, your intent was not bad. You didn't set out with like, I'm going to screw us over and like help us lose money and everything. But there's an irresponsibility factor there that whether you meant to or not, you're not owning this. And it's fucking annoying. It's more than annoying. It creates trust issues. It creates things. It creates resentment 100%. That it's like it's not like on paper, you may think like, oh, well, is he cheating? Is he this? He's not drinking, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean just because you're not drinking, just because you're not doing these extremes, doesn't mean that there's not a whole list of things underneath that you are doing that are upsetting me, and you're not taking responsibility with them. And being with people who are at the extremes is frustrating because it's like, well, at least I'm not drinking. Well, at least I'm not. It does not matter. You cannot be drinking and not be using those vices and still do something that I see as irresponsible for us. Yeah. Drinking is the top. Drinking is the Thanos boss. But then you also have these things on the pyramid that you can also do that are not, they're not.
But the thing is, first and foremost, Carl is an addict. He has said that. And the thing is, being an addict isn't just drinking alcohol or just doing drugs. It's a trait that a person has, which is what makes them do things that are very like detrimental to their health and safety and others potentially. But a part of being an addict is these extremes, and they do really affect people, themselves and people around you. And I feel like Carl has been lucky enough to have a safety net of the network of Andy Cohen, of his castmates. And I feel like sometimes he uses that as to his advantage. And I think that's okay to call that out.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Wow. I did not expect to go into a summer house kind of overall recap, but I love that for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a little bonus for you guys. You're welcome.
Yeah.
But the main point of why we were here is we were actually, you wouldn't know, but I'm happy. I feel like whatever. This all relates. It's all pop culture. It actually kind of relates a little bit to the documentary when you get into toxic relationships, because that is actually, it kind of relates to it a lot now that I think about it.
It's a huge theme.
It is a huge theme. Okay, so let's just jump into it. So we watched the documentary Glitter and Greed, the Lisa Frank story, which was on Prime. And Lisa Frank, if you're not familiar, was a company that was hugely popular in the 80s and especially in the 90s into like early 2000s, I would say. And they specialized in everything like pretty much glitter, unicorns, rainbows, like very like airbrush pops of color. They had the market on school supplies for the longest, and then in other products. And it was pretty much every little girl, or maybe little boys, favorite thing to pick up in the store. Like that hit a dopamine when you go down the school supply aisle and you're like, I'm getting that fucking dolphin trapper keeper. Like, pick it up, mom. Like, put it in the cart. It's
pencil boxes, notebooks. You like said, trapper keeper binder, folders,
everything. And I like, for me, I absolutely had a shit ton of Lisa Frank growing up. Did you partake in Lisa Frank?
Oh, 100%. I had a pencil box. I had a lot of things. I had notebooks, folders, of course,
all the things.
Yeah.
I recently, when I went home I think it was my grandfather's funeral a couple of years ago, I was just like, again, I'm a very nostalgic person. So anytime I go home to Detroit, I like to go through my old stuff. And I found under my bed in a box my diary. And I'm not really a big diary keeper, but like every so often my mom would buy me one and I would try to do something with it. And she bought me a Lisa Frank diary. And I was just like reading through it. And I was just like, oh, just the stupid shit I would say. And I just but I like love this Lisa Frank diary. So I actually used that one because I loved it so much. And I'm not consistent with journaling, but that was, I think, the one time that I was, because I think it just inspired me. I just loved writing in it.
Yeah.
But Lisa Frank, I don't know, it did give you some type of happiness. So I always get excited when I see documentaries about things that I enjoyed as a child, especially because of better times when I didn't have to think about, bills or how I'm going to pay for this or that.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, a Lisa Frank documentary. Like, I'm just assuming it's going to be how this company was formed. And then you realize, oh, it's literally not all like rainbows and unicorns. It's like there is a kind of a darker side to this really bright company. And
what kills me is like, you would never, and I feel like that's kind of how things are able to slide under the radar so much, is the fact that like we're talking about school supplies, folders, binders, pencils with unicorns and rainbows and like tigers with big eyes on them. And they're a very, very, very juvenile innocence in it. But behind it are these huge adult big problems.
Yes.
That it's just like, if I would have known this folder, if I would have known somebody was getting screamed at
that's such a
how to
fair
draw
point.
This lion on this folder. Wow.
But then also, I hate to admit it, but he, like, the main guy who I feel like caused a lot of this like terror for some of the artists that worked at Lisa Frank, which we'll get into. His name is James Green, which is the husband or former husband of Lisa Frank of Lisa Frank. And he literally, at one point later in the documentary, he said he wanted the animals or whatever imagery that had eyes to be drawn so that it was like looking at someone constantly. So when the customer was walking down the aisle, it was always looking at you, because it made it harder for you not to buy the product. And I hate to say it, but I think there was something to that.
Oh, 100%. Because did you ever do, like, when we had Lisa Frank, I remember this was like a whole thing. We would take like the, whatever it was, binder, notebook, whatever. And we would be like, oh, no matter what way you move it, it's always looking at you because of how it was drawn. I get that. Genius marketing. However, how you communicate that, you know what I mean? Like in the Martha Stewart documentary,
I watched that one too.
At work got, like, we didn't get into it. Obviously, it was like basic conversation, but they were like, well, it's her magazine, it's her product. Like, she's like, of course this mug isn't selling. You can barely put your finger in it or whatever. And it was whatever else it was. I was like, yes, she is correct by wanting it. I was like, but the way she communicated, the way she said that was not it. No one's saying she's wrong for like,
it's the how.
It's the how you communicate it.
Yeah. So that's a big, big theme. So this company and everybody, everybody that's worked for this company, that has come into contact with this company, I don't think there's anybody that said that the product wasn't good. But how they got that product out was not good. That was also a theme.
Yeah.
And so the documentary, it's broken down into 4. They're not long episodes. I think they're like 24 to 30-minute long episodes, but they're 4 of them. I kind of broke it down, and like, it's kind of starts out, the first episode's about the company, then it's kind of about the marriage, and then the third episode is kind of the disillusion of the marriage and a little bit of legality stuff, and then like the legacy of Lisa Frank. That's kind of how it's broken down. And I find it, I had a lot of mixed opinions about the documentary, in the sense of it was absolutely not black and white for me. There are certain right? There were certain points where I'm like, oh, well, I totally side with Lisa Frank on this, but that doesn't mean I think that she's some type of victim, because I feel like she was a tyrant over here. So there was not one like through. I think the only through line I felt bad for was literally the people who work for the company.
Yeah. The people underneath. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's when I was watching, you told me if you kind of felt this way. The whole like Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is so interesting. And it opens up a larger conversation because, like you said, I was watching and I was like, I feel bad for Lisa in this respect, but
Yeah.
over here, you are also treating people badly and making them feel a certain type of way. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I don't mean that I don't think that means that you should be subject to this. And
Right.
it's like, I was like, it's so interesting how these conversations and how these themes tie into one another
Yeah.
because, I think overall, my thing was it was her company and it's so clear that she had a dream and a vision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she did achieve that.
Yeah.
But at the root of it, the men,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the men come in and you really start talking about power and greed. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like she did not protect herself. And that's, I'm not saying like, oh, she should have, should have,
Right.
could have.
Right.
I get it. We've all been there. Your vision becomes so big that sometimes you don't protect the actual vision, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I it's so interesting because it begs a question. So who is really Lisa Frank?
Mm.
And when I ask that, that's a big question because we have two people claiming to be Lisa Frank.
Yeah.
We have Lisa Frank, that is
Herself.
Lisa legally
Mhm.
Frank.
Mhm.
And then we have her husband, who is
James.
James Green. And
Mhm.
James Green is wholeheartedly, in my opinion, delusionally taking full credit for being the real Lisa Frank. And I'm just gonna start out and before we like really get into why I feel this way, and then I'll ask you how you felt.
Mhm.
But I don't understand how he thinks that he is the person that is solely responsible for making Lisa Frank Lisa Frank. I don't get his rationale behind that. I'm not
No.
saying he didn't have a huge part in it, but to like almost try to diminish as if she is some fraud, as if she had no skin in the game is delusional in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree because even before they met and got married, she had already established, I don't even want to call it a little, but like an amount of getting the Lisa Frank, the product
Yeah.
out there and having her own like warehouse and brick and mortar. So she had
Mhm.
already accomplished that. Did he help take it to the next level? Yes, he
Yeah.
did. But to sit here and try and act like you are the reason all of this was possible. He very much so married her when she had already established this business and she had
Mhm.
already seen some success from it.
Yeah.
That
Yes. Cuz
I
she
find him to be the most disgusting and
mm,
most delusion of men and slash people. And even when he was on the screen talking, I was like,
mhm.
you're insane.
Yes. And I mean, we are both not licensed to make any diagnosis, but my opinion is he is
Mhm.
a casebook. Is it a textbook? No, a textbook narcissist.
Yes. Yes.
He, and gosh, I can't wait to really get into James Green because I feel like that he, like, I wish Lisa was in the documentary. So it's
Mhm.
really difficult I can only go off of what her former employees and some of the other people that small business owners and her husband and her son. I can only go off of that. I really feel like I can tear this man to shreds because he sat before me and I'm listening to him and
Mhm.
he don't make no fucking sense.
Exactly. And you know what I wish? I wish that Lisa would stop. It's clear that she doesn't want to be a part of anything. She just wants to focus on the future. I think and that was a text in the documentary was that she said like her only comment was like I'm excited for the future and focusing on like what's next and blah blah. I just
Yeah.
wish she would stop letting people speak for her
Yes.
because we have James showed up, her son showed up, all these people showed up and she is not we don't have anything from her. Right. So
Right.
I cannot make a well-informed decision because
Right.
she's allowing these people to speak for her.
I would love to hear her perspective
Mhm.
on, especially when it comes to the family dynamic,
Yeah.
especially because when we get to the part with her son Hunter, her first son,
Mhm.
I have a whole lot of opinions about.
Yeah.
that and why he might feel the way he feels about his mother to a degree. I
Yeah.
wasn't there. I
Yeah,
can't,
yeah,
I'm not trying to negate his experience.
Mhm.
Some of the shit coming out of Hunter Green's mouth.
I'm right there with you, Pia, because I'm a believer of like kids needing to stay out of the grown folks' business and parents' business. And I literally just talked about this on the episode that I just recorded because when it has to do with like Allison Holker and her daughter, not with Twitch, getting on live
Oh,
saying
yes,
all
I
these
saw
things.
that.
I said, and I say that as a child of divorce, as a child of like, there was a lot of turmoil and a lot of like, said, she said, and I know what I saw. And I know like the stories that, some of the adults in situations try and tell. And yes,
Yeah.
I do know that some of the things I am like, no, like I know that to be true. I wasn't just too young or anything like that.
Yeah.
However, there is a different perspective when it comes to parent versus child and that dynamic that as a child, you may not understand, but you've held on to it. Even though you are an adult, you have held on to this in the mindset of a child.
Right. Right. And you don't, and you could be there firsthand and still not be privy to
Understand.
everything,
Yeah.
what was actually happening. And I'm sorry. Again, I also have my own personal experience. I had not a really strong relationship with my father growing up. I was the only child from my mom, but my dad, I have like 6 half siblings. And I can tell you, even though I did not feel like my dad was there for me in the way I needed him to be there for me, I can tell you I have eyes and I know he was a fantastic father to my half siblings. We didn't have the same lived experience. And I might not have appreciated or been able to completely understand that growing up, but as an adult, I can look back and see that. But I also know that my mom made a very big effort to keep me out of whatever was going on between my dad. And it's just because I was around and I could hear it, even like, I could see little things or, but my mom would always make it a very big thing to like never say disrespectful like shit about my dad and always encouraged me to have a relationship with my dad. It was my dad that just would not do the follow through. Like he would show up sometimes and then he would just not show up. And but my mom would always still encourage because she would put me before herself and her feelings of how he's treating her. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that that's the dynamic too, because it's so clear that James just wants people on his side. He did not have that. And again, we're just going off of what we know because we haven't heard from Lisa. But James wants people on his side. He loves that this relationship between Hunter and his mom is strained because he feels like it gives into what he was saying, like in his point of view. And I find that kind of sick. I find that sick.
I do too. And honestly, I feel like we have every right to come to that conclusion based off of what James has said himself.
True.
And I would say that because the director asked James, hey, like, when they ended up getting pregnant with Hunter, like, were you excited to be a father? He says, no, not really. And I don't know, the callousness, the coldness of it, to me was very telling. And it's not that you can't change your mind. Like maybe you weren't like expecting to want to have kids or whatever. Like I get that. And then Hunter comes and you're like, man, I'm so happy to be a dad. Like I love being a dad. That's you're absolutely able to change your mind. But it didn't seem like he did, really, because when Hunter then comes in, she has Hunter. Lisa then takes a very big back seat in the company and stays home with Hunter. James tells us that, not anybody else. James, I mean, other people did back that, but James says that he admits that. He said I almost feel like he judged her for it.
Yeah.
Like
and
wanted.
It's insane. Yeah. Well, it's insane because we see that so often with women because they have not only carried the child, women are generally the main caretakers. And it is so, so, so normal and acceptable for if Lisa did just want to take a step back, even if she felt like maybe she was just like, no, I want to spend time with my baby. I want to focus my interest. There is no shame in that.
No, none at all.
And you owe her a fucking thank you.
Absolutely. And the thing is, she was still working. I know that maybe back then people didn't realize that there is very much a way to work from home. We are very aware that I think really as of the pandemic, we're just really realizing it's very much a possibility to work from home. You don't need to go to a physical office to get work done. But one thing was very telling. one thing was very telling was that everybody that was in this documentary said when the buyers came in, that woman was in there.
Yeah.
And that woman
there.
was not just in there begrudgingly. That woman was in there and she turned on. She commanded a presence when she did come in. And she was a closer. And that to me is so valuable. You can have all the most beautiful rainbows, unicorns, doe-eyed fucking kitty cats. But someone got to sell that shit.
Exactly.
And she was the closer, baby.
And that's important. Besides the product, that's just as important. And for me, unless I missed it, but I don't think I did, James definitely had his strengths with keeping people in line, whether I agree with how he went about it or not.
Yeah.
He did obviously provided some type of order, but James, you were not drawing, okay? You were not closing. I think James is the case of like, you knew that your talents, using air quotes there, and your role is actually the replaceable one.
Yes.
The artist and Lisa, it's harder to find somebody who can close like that and who can own the brand, especially for not being there as often and taking a step back. And you can find another artist, obviously. Like
they had a boatload of them. Everybody, all of them were capable. And I think honestly, now that that kind of just made me think, I think because the artists have said many times, the illustrators that work for Lisa Frank has said that James would make them draw the same characters over and over and over, and into a point where it felt like it was just a power thing and an intimidation thing, and just he was a fucking bored thing. And I think it came to what you're saying is that I think it infuriates him that people are capable of drawing the things that comes through his brilliant fucking mind the first time. And so she wants to try to get into their head. Don't ever think that you're good on the first try. Because you're not me. I think it was a way to check them without them realizing they were being checked, because he was replaceable, or even to make Lisa, like in Lisa's head, be like, he is this genius. He is the person that I need in order for my company to survive, because he sees that what others cannot see.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's a con. I mean, I see him as a con artist.
I do too.
He really is. He is a con artist. He behaves like one when he realizes that, because a lot of con artists, they con because they know that they are replaceable and they can be like, easily put aside. And that's how I saw his behavior. Even down to like, and he's a control freak, obviously.
Yeah.
Down to what did he lock the
padlock?
Pretty much tried to lock. Yeah, tried to padlock the employees inside.
So there was an employee. No, you cannot do that. So there was an employee who she said, the director asked this employee if I'll start with. So there was an employee who was a single mom that had 2 kids, and for some reason she had to go to the bank, but the bank closes at a certain time. All the employees have said that working at Lisa Frank, they worked very, very long hours, past what you would typically like work. And the bank closed at a certain time. She had a very small window to get there. I think she honestly tried to work up until she literally would have just enough time to make it to this goddamn bank. And James was a type of person who just wanted to assert his power. Like he was some type of like I don't know. He had like a Napoleon complex, I feel like. I don't know. And he would just go around trying to like essentially figure out a way to like fire you, or I don't know. So she knows this about this man, doesn't want to cause any trouble. She really has to go to the bank and get this done. So she has this brilliant idea of leaving through the warehouse because it wouldn't be as noticeable her leaving. Although, by the way, she's worked a full shift. It's 5 p.m. at that point, guys. And the next day, the warehouse security person calls her up and said, "What did you do? What did you do?" And she's so confused. Like, what do you mean? She's like, "Well, James has called, said that there are people trying to escape." I believe that is the phrase was used, that people are trying to escape, which is a weird thing to say about your employees.
It is.
Like, not just say they try to leave work early. They try to escape. What? That you said, okay, all right. And that we need to start padlocking the exits in the warehouse, which if you work in any building, that is a literal fire hazard. And the warehouse, thank God the warehouse guy was just like, no, that's a fire hazard. We cannot do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the director is like, well, because the director, to be fair, it's kind of trying to be like, is this like the first time you've tried to do this? Like, there are people that try to leave work early chronically.
Yeah.
Even if you have things going on at home, you have to try to figure those things out.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying, no, this was literally the only time I've ever tried to do this. And then that was just how that situation was treated. Like, like some type of like, I would try to break out of like Fort Knox or I don't know.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The retelling of that story is wild to me. Like you said, the word escape, I was like, escape. Escape. To say that somebody tried to escape me insinuates that I think that I am in possession of them. Like I am holding them captive.
Well, and it's also kind of acknowledging that you are admitting that you are keeping them against their will.
And in my mind, I think that I am like above them and like in charge of like holding them hostage there. That is, like, you're telling me exactly. You're saying the quiet part out loud.
Exactly.
James often says the quiet part out loud, and that's why I'm like,
exactly. And the thing is, it's not just that one example, because it said again, it wouldn't be fair to just use one example because it could literally be everybody has their own perspective of what happened, right? For all we know, she was a horrible employee and she was chronically leaving. I don't fucking know. I would have to see her time cards. I don't know that. Okay. I don't have time for that. But there's just so many people that have told the same stories about being like, I had to work 12 hours or 15 hours, or I am a diabetic and they are making us stay later and later, and they asked us to stay late. And all I asked is if I could just take a moment, because I am diabetic and I have to be on a particular schedule. If I could have a dinner break, and I was fired immediately after. And then you have low key love hate Rhonda from HR.
Well, okay. Listen, HR is there to protect the company.
Oh, people need to know. People need to understand what HR is for.
HR is there to protect the company.
Low-key, Rhonda was doing her job.
She was. Now, was her job unhinged? Yes. But Rhonda was like not wrong.
Rhonda wasn't wrong.
She was wrong on a human perspective, but like she did her job very well to protect that company.
She did. And the thing is, Rhonda in her old age, I don't know what's going on with her. I feel like there is some underlying health, something happening with her, but Rhonda is tired. Yeah, Rhonda is tired of lying and covering up for people, because she was kind of reverting back into what she had to do for that company. But it didn't take much for her to just kind of flat out admit certain things, because when it came to the whole diabetic situation where Rhonda did let that man go because James said he had to go because he went to dinner and decided to put his health before drawing some unicorn. She's like, no, Rhonda was telling on herself, because when it came to the man with diabetes,
oh my God,
she said, okay, so the director was like, okay, so do you remember a guy with diabetes that you fired? And she was like, that never happened. We would never do that. We don't do things that are illegal. Next breath, the director says, well, is there anything that you have ever fired a Lisa Frank Inc. employee about that doesn't pertain to their work? And she's like, oh, yes. Like, I mean, if their attitude, or if they didn't stay when we asked them to stay. It wasn't a great place to work. I like it. Girl.
Like you said, she is clearly tired. But she is tired. Like, listen, I did things I'm not proud of. All while trying to say, like, I didn't do that. Yeah. But I did do things I wasn't proud of.
And then, like, the director would be like, they call you the enforcer. She's like, I mean, that sounds pretty accurate. I did fire a lot of people. Yeah, I did that. That. Like, she was just like, I kind of respect you. So like, I did all that. Like, I can understand why people felt the way they felt, because I probably fired over 100 people, and that's just what it was. I know it's insane, and it was very clear. And it seemed at one point it felt as if people were getting fired at a rapid rate, and mainly at the discretion of James, or like he was the person that was greenlighting these people to be being fired.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said his behavior towards the end was like very erratic, as if he was on cocaine.
Okay. When they said that, I was like, and now we said it, not to quote Camille Grammer, but because when I first saw him, I mean, the first couple words he said, I said, this is either a man who at one point in his life frequently indulged in coke or uppers.
Yeah.
Or still does.
Yeah.
I literally was like, you just give that energy.
Crackhead energy. And the funny thing is, he's like, again, he's very like Rhonda-esque. He's like, no, I never did that. Like, that's crazy. Why would you why would what business person would go into work like on cocaine? First of all, a lot. Wall Street. All of Wall Street. Did we not see the Wolf of Wall Street?
All of Wall Street. Good amount of service industry workers.
Yes.
You have no clue.
Especially jobs that they deal in creative or just deal in very long hours. Cocaine is your best friend. Do you what's his name? King. Who wrote those novels like It and Misery? Stephen King.
Yeah, I was gonna say Stephen King. Yeah,
Stephen King wrote all of those classic novels on cocaine. He doesn't remember writing half of his shit because he was so high. And also, they say that Misery, the novel Misery by Stephen King, the person that's like Kathy Bates' character is cocaine. That's like the representation of cocaine for Stephen King. So it's like, sir, James, that's some addict type talk.
That's
you're trying to act as if you can't know. And then in the next breath, he says, well, the director asked, so you've never done cocaine? Oh, I didn't say that. No, didn't say that. Did not say.
Well, I didn't say that part. Yeah.
Like, of course I've done cocaine. I just didn't do it at work. Okay. All right. Maybe so. Maybe so. But, okay. At least I would love to blame it on the cocaine. And that's just not you. But if you want to say that's just you, babes.
Yeah.
All right. Go for it. Go ahead with your bad self.
I think that the issue, there's a lot of issues with coke, but like the one thing is, I'm trying to think of how to say this without incriminating myself. It can make you feel more sober than you really are.
Oh, yes. That's why some people take it.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's that's the trick is playing on you.
They're in the movie Flight with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
That's actually a really, that's one of the main ways that he was able to be an alcoholic. So like literally flying a plane absolutely smashed, like inebriated to no end. But he would in order to be able to fly, then what he would do is he would snort some cocaine. Yeah. Because it evens it out. So when you're drinking and you're really, really fucked up to a point where you're like, oh, I'm too fucked up. And I'm not trying to, I'm not incriminating. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm not saying nothing. But I live in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that it is very like sobering if you need sobering.
That's what I hear.
It makes you feel like you're sober because make no mistake, you are not.
No, you're not. But it does. It gives. It's like when you get one of those adrenaline pens.
Yeah.
It's gonna give you that like for like an amount of time that like surge of like I can do this. I can do this really like. But it's like, but don't be fooled. You are absolutely fucked up.
Yeah, 100%.
You're fucked up.
And highly agitated.
And and that's when you can really get yourself into worse situations. Yeah, you're very agitated. Like everything is on 100. But so. Then
we've heard.
So we heard allegedly. I would never. It's not me.
No,
not me. Anywho, so allegedly. So then also with Rhonda and James, there came also rumors that they were having some type of affair.
Yeah,
and what do you think?
I think they were.
I do too.
If they were not there, I think something inappropriate definitely went on with them.
Emotional affair.
Yes. Yeah. Or I think if you work for a company, you work for a good company. Rhonda clearly did her job well. She understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Per James. And I think I've had one time in my life where I actually got fired And the HR person was like, I did not do my due diligence in protecting the company in this part. And I saw like the little bit of human feeling in there. And also the part of like, oh shit, because she fucked up.
Yeah.
She fucked up big time because like, long story short, I had a meeting with them. They canceled the meeting because of what somebody else said. And it was like a whole he said, she said thing. And it was like, oh, well, fuck me. And then come next week, she didn't even work there anymore because of what she did. But yeah. But you do create like a closeness, even in my job now, like you have a closeness with your HR person because it's like, hey, this is what you're doing. If you're working for a company that's good and you're working for a company that really does like uphold and respect human values, you work closely with the HR person and to come to a conclusion that one protects the company, but two also gets like the person out of there that does not need to be working there anymore.
Yeah.
I think that James is a master manipulator. Like I said, he's a con artist. I think he probably came and presented a lot of things to Rhonda that in a way that was like, oh, this person needs to get out of there. And he's manipulative enough to where it felt like, okay, I think this might be wrong, but maybe it's a little like, I'm just going to sit down and do my job and things like that. I'm sure that there was, and especially with everything going on in him and Lisa's relationship, I'm sure there was like something there.
Yeah. And I don't think that because it's so funny because I think everybody kind of believed it with the exception of there was one employee who was like, no, they're so different. Da, da, da. And I think that if there wasn't anything that physically happened, I think that maybe like, working closely and Rhonda clearly had such admiration and respect. She literally kept saying that James was a genius in every which way, that she may have had some type of crush that didn't necessarily, like, and maybe she doesn't even realize she did, but she did. But I believe that James was aware of it and aware he seems like a manipulative person. I think that's actually how he ended up with Lisa and the same respect, because how did he start this relationship that no one knew about, by the way, at first? It's because they were working so closely together. And even when they talk about, the director tries to be like, well, how, like there was love at some point, or trying to get some type of love story out of this man. Because there had to be some love before it went sour. I don't think that man loved Lisa ever.
No.
And it was because he calls it as a bad business decision. That is how he labeled that. His marriage. And I do believe that he saw an opportunity. He saw that Lisa was interested, because he made it very clear this was like almost like a Lisa pursuing situation in so many words. And he was just like, I guess I could marry her. And I think he thought that this would be a really great way to solidify him being indisposable.
Yep. 100%.
And then what does Lisa end up doing? Gifting that man 49% of her company when they get married.
Pia, if you follow me online, you hear me say all the time, the only thing I want for women is to protect themselves and their assets. When I heard that 49%, oh my God, I was gutted. I was like, love. My mom has always told me, love, marriage and love, of course, they go hand in hand together, but let's not make no mistake. There's a business end of marriage that people end up getting screwed over in all the time. James went into that relationship very much seeing this as a business decision, per his own words.
Yep.
Okay. Lisa went into it with love, which is how, and the issue with that is that James knew that Lisa went into it with love, and he knew that that's how he got 49% of that goddamn company.
Yeah. And to be fair, I feel like the only representation that I could actually be able to get some sense of anything on the actual human of Lisa Frank was through the footage of their wedding, their home video of the wedding. And it was very clear that woman loved that man in some capacity and was excited to be married. And it was very clear he did not give a fuck about that wedding in that video. All he cared was, you could see and I know he said he is controlling, he said that, and you could see that in the video. Like he's trying to art direct their wedding pictures, throwing champagne glasses on the gravel. Like, it's just, he's ridiculous.
He is.
And I do believe that when it did end up inevitably going south, because I think at a certain point, Lisa started to see that she believed, Lisa herself believed, that Rhonda and him were having an affair, because her son Hunter says that she allegedly screamed this to him when he had made a compliment about Rhonda and said, like, your husband or your dad is cheating on me with that bitch or something along the lines. That's what Hunter says that his mom said.
And like,
And
I just want to like comment on that because like, I feel like at this point, Hunter takes every little thing that he remembers about his mom and he like that was ever said to him and like twist it and trying to make her seem like the bad parent. I just want to be so clear. If that was said, should she have said that to him? No. But is that a reason to like to tick on to the camel's back of why you don't fuck with your mother and why your mother was such a horrible mother? I'm using air quotes there for anybody who can't see me.
right.
No, it is not. It was absolutely an emotional reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But I have talked to people who have had like emotional reactions when they found out that they've been cheated on with their kids, to like their kids making comments that clearly their kids do not know. Their kids are unaware. So that whatever he probably didn't even know what cheating was in the grand scheme of things when that was said to him. You just remember that you were yelled at. Parents are humans too.
Yeah.
Parents are humans too. They are going to make mistakes. I'm sure if Lisa could talk to you, probably would be like, I shouldn't have done that.
Absolutely. Because from the pictures alone that I've seen, and just even through some of what the employees have said, and they've said not so nice things about Lisa, but they also I don't feel like any of the employees ever, it seems like they all would be in agreement that she loved those kids and she was so excited to be a parent to the point where she stayed home from her first baby, which is Lisa Frank, which we know she loves so much too. Yeah. And I feel like what happened with her relationship with her first son, Hunter, because they have two kids. They have Hunter and they have Forrest. So James's last name is Green. Clearly, I kind of like it that they did.
It's cute.
It's cute. I do kind of like that they went with like variation of different shades of green for the kids' names. But it's telling to me that Hunter, and again, like I said earlier, you can have a parent that treats one kid differently than the other. So it's not that, the other kid is like making this up. It's very maybe that Lisa favored Forrest over Hunter, but there's something to that. Hunter is going with his dad and Forrest is going with his mom. And I just wish we had Forrest and Lisa in the documentary so we can get some checks and balances up in here, because it's just really hard to make a very informed opinion, but I do still have one. And my opinion is that James, like, I don't know if anybody is familiar with what parent alienation is, but this is what I feel like happened in the Frank / Jane home. I feel like when Lisa and James decided to get divorced, it was very nasty. James has said that Lisa said that she was essentially going to take back that 49%, which she did intend to do. And I think it's because she feels hurt and feels like he did cheat on her. And if I was feeling like that, I would want my fucking company back too. Like, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have any part of it.
Yeah. And one thing I want to, because one of the themes of this is male ego, is like as a whole. And I feel like, to your point of like, Lisa said she was taking her 49% back. I feel like in turn, James was like, okay, you're going to take your 49% back of this company. Watch me turn one of your kids against you. And I would not be shocked.
That's where I was getting at. Yes.
I would not be shocked if he tried to do it with Forrest as well.
Didn't
but
work.
he just wanted to. And that's why I find James to be the nastiest upon the nastiest. And I'm going to say it. I find him to be a terrible parent, because good parents want to, it does not matter how they feel about the other, they want that child relationship. My mom and my dad do not speak. We will never, I've often said, I will never ever be in the same room, my whole family, me, my mom, my dad, my brother, ever again, because my parents, they have no contact. My mom would never, ever, ever want us to think terribly of my dad, contrary to his belief. Like, my mom still to this day will be like, "Would you talk to your dad?" and blah, blah. I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, not going to push it. Like, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That is not her wish. That was never her wish. And I think that James, was what he set out to do, and it was not at the best interest of his son, because rolling into that, I would be willing to bet money that I don't know anything about Hunter's sexuality, but if he is straight and he dates women, I would be willing to bet money that he is a hellscape of a fucking partner to women, because men who have a hatred and a vitriol in their hearts for their mother, for whatever reason, for whatever reason, notoriously do not treat women the best because they see that in they see their mom and that, and they try it's all about like getting back at them and
Yeah.
making sure. And in this case, his mom is kind of seen as this powerful woman, this strong businesswoman that he feels neglected by, and felt like,
Yes.
if I would promise you that if he does date women again, he probably goes for women that he thinks are weaker than him.
Oh, I absolutely. And even the way in which he, like, first of all, his obsession with his father is unhealthy. I'm sorry.
It
He
is.
has
It's
all of it.
weird.
He has all of his father's artwork all over his body, which is
Yep.
not what makes it unhealthy. Like, that's not what's the red flag to me. It's just the way in which he describes having these like almost shrines to his dad on his body. He has his dad's initials, and he says, I have my dad's initial on my body because he's my favorite person, which is, that's on paper, that sounds amazing, cute, da-da-da.
The way he said it.
The way he said it is disturbing, in my opinion. And then
Same.
also, he's like, I love him more than I love myself. And again, like, it's like, it's just how you have to, the way he says it, it comes off almost cult. Like, think of like somebody who is in a cult and then they worship somebody. That is the level in which he sounds. Like, it's not in a healthy way, and definitely not in a reciprocated way. It doesn't feel that way.
No,
it doesn't feel
100%.
like this. It's just a really great father-son dynamic. This feels like this. I really hurt. I hurt for Hunter because I don't think he thinks that his dad is using him as a pawn to hurt his mother, but I absolutely think that's what is happening.
Yep.
And has happened, because think about this. That woman, one, she did win the lawsuit that she placed against her ex-husband. So he had to surrender all rights and sell back his shares to her, which hurt him so much, I'm sure. And then she got full custody of both Hunter and Forrest. When, to me, a mom shows her love, and I feel like she did in this way, where Hunter was clearly being, every time he was with his dad, being manipulated into thinking that his mom was a workaholic, doesn't care about him. There was a time where he says that, yeah, she goes to my baseball game. She brings her work with her. She's clearly doing stuff on her notepad. I do a home run, and then I look up and she's cheering for me. Why are you cheering for me? You didn't see me do it. I thought that was going to be like, oh, she's still sitting there doing her, like, no, she stood up and cheered for you. But somehow he still doesn't believe that she like saw it, or that she, like, I don't know, that she's paying attention. And then he would say that, like, oh, but he pretty much said his mom was lazy and didn't contribute to Lisa Frank in any capacity, and it was all his dad. And then the director kind of like guides him into a question, but like, why is it that your mom is not ambitious, but your dad is ambitious? You're saying that he works all the time. And it's just like, well, I just don't think she was doing much when she was working. Like, which one is it? It's like he can't keep track.
No, and he would benefit from therapy greatly, but I don't think he's a person that wants to be in therapy, and his dad is not a person that wants him to be in therapy. You know what I think of when I think, and I thought about it when I listened to him talk, and like, kind of like, my partner and I have like had this discussion too when it comes to parent dynamics and like playing, like, how our parents show up for us. And I always think back to Love and Basketball. I know people have their feelings about that movie, but when Monica and her mom are having the conversation in the kitchen, and Monica's like, you never came to my games unless XYZ. And then when you were, I knew you didn't want to be there. And the mom in turn says, Monica, I felt like you didn't want me there. I felt like as long as your daddy was there, and the parent that you felt that you were getting the most love from and that you could relate to more, as long as he was there, I didn't matter. So after a while, once you started growing up and I could really see your like disgust for me, or not, she didn't say that, but like I could really feel that you didn't want me there. Yes, I stopped going. Now, of course, people would say like, it is the parent's job to always show up for the kid. And I do believe that to a certain extent. But again, I go back to, parents are humans too.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have a child that you just really butt heads with so much, and you feel like they don't want you there, maybe to a certain extent, I can understand where it's like, okay, I want what's best for my child. And my mere presence of like not like being there is upsetting them. Maybe I will fall back. So I'm wondering if that's a case of like, I get it from Lisa Frank's point of view, because I had a mom that worked really hard and worked long hours too. She would come and get me, and then I often would have to go back to her office with her. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if, and for me, for as a young woman, I think it shaped me. It really helped my work ethic as well. For me, I always saw, I was like, wow, this woman can do anything.
Yes.
She is doing it all. That is how I saw it. I never saw it of like, she didn't have time for me, or
Right.
she was just there because, and my mom had a job that she did often have to be on her phone. Often she had like a work phone and then a personal phone. She would often like step aside at games and like things like that, or like band recitals. She would have to like take a step aside and like answer the phone and do this. I notice it, but I never felt like I was being put to the side. But
Mm-hmm.
that's also because like anything I wanted to do, not anything, dance, band, all this stuff, my mom made it happen. And I always had an
Yeah.
understanding without me, like my parents didn't throw that stuff in my face at all. But
Yeah.
I always understood like
You
why
picked up
these
on
things.
it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, like my parents have to work. Like if
But I'm like, that's why I feel in my soul that that's why I feel like James was doing these, like, was in
Mhm,
Hunter's ear, actively saying, she's not paying attention when
mhm,
she goes to your baseball game.
mhm, yeah,
She's keeping me from you, because it feels like when Hunter is recollecting these things, it
mhm,
almost feels like it's not even his recollections. It's
yeah,
something that he's been being told over and over. And I feel like he doesn't even hear some of the stuff he's saying, because he's saying, well, when I went to my dad's house, I was like, I don't want to leave. My dad is like crying. I've never seen my dad cry before. He
mhm.
wants me to stay, but he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. You can't stay. But guess what? He got to stay. And I don't think Hunter understands how a custody agreement works.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth because that's what I was getting to next.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Because if she wanted to keep you away from your damn daddy, she
Hmm.
could.
Full custody.
She has full custody. So all of your like crying and all of these things wouldn't make a difference. If she
Hmm.
really truly didn't care about you, she would have made your ass come home. Did it hurt her? And did she tell you it hurt her? Sure. But
Yeah,
if she didn't tell you it hurt her, you would have been like, she didn't even care.
exactly. And I just want to point something out. Not saying that the justice system is not broken because it clearly is. However, for her to get full custody, she got full custody of them kids.
Yes.
It was either because his dad did not put up a fight, or because something was shown and proven in the courts that showed that his dad could not have or could not support full custody of
Right.
those two kids. And you think all this talking, all this power your dad likes to yield, you think that you think that he just lost full custody. This man is so powerful. He's so creative. He's the driving force. He's the one that works hard. He. You think that he had, your mom had full custody of you because he let her. He didn't
He
want to
tried
be.
there was one point where he not alluded, he said that his mom accused his dad of abusing him. And I wanted to be, I wish the director had brought this up so we could have, because this is a very important thing. There's one thing of James telling Hunter that that's what his mom was doing. I was like, because I
Mhm.
don't remember Hunter saying that
Thing.
he heard his mom say that. He just like
Mhm.
his mom accused my
Mhm.
dad of abusing me. It's again sounding like something he heard from somebody else.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, and that's how she won custody, there would be some record of that, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yes. And that is my thing also, because Hunter does read, to me, the way he talks about his dad is how a victim talks about their abuser. I do believe that. When that was said, I was like, hmm, because that's what I was picking up on. And like, I just like to go back to the custody part. What I think in my mind is, Nikki Bella and Artem.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know his last name. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, she accused him that he got arrested. He was accused of domestic violence
Right.
because they were arguing. One thing I find very sad about that is that the only thing that they can agree on in that argument is that they were disagreeing about how to feed their child, which
Mm,
that is not, and that at no point could one of them stop and say, like, as long as the child is getting fed, okay, like
yeah.
that is what's important. Nikki applied for full custody, or wanted to take full custody of their child, and she did not get it. She did not
Mm.
get it. They got joint custody of that child. You have to there are and everything is sealed. Like their stuff is very hush hush under the rug, things like that. Again, I'm not saying that the justice system is without flaw, because
it's definitely
but
flawed.
there are things that you have to prove. There are things that you have to. Abusers, unfortunately, get custody and get away with these things all of the time. So for Lisa in this instance to get like joint custody, or full custody, and then in the sense of like Nikki and Artem, like that, I'm sorry, that is what I think that they were fighting. I think that, somebody should have been the bigger person, and it's not okay. He shouldn't put his hands on her. But I think they were fighting, and I think that it sounds like, from what details I got, the judge was like, no, to both of y'all.
Yeah.
And it's joint custody, period.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me when I read all of this. But these things have to be proven. Like, there is some stuff that goes into place to stop, like, if your dad wanted full custody of you, he would have had it, or even joint. He would have had it. I don't think he tried. Because then he would have to be held accountable on a different level.
Yeah. And then, we have Hunter going off the rails, and his TikToks. He created a whole TikTok account to expose his mom. What was the TikTok account? It's now down.
Down, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he does.
I had seen that TikTok account, and I was like, you're her son?
And the thing is, I had seen those videos before I ever watched the documentary, and I was convinced that I was going to be like, Lisa Frank's a monster.
Same.
And my fiance was watching a little bit of the documentary with me ahead when I first started it, and happened to be in the room when I was watching some of the TikToks. And then so the documentary comes on, and he's like, "Is this the same?" It's like something not adding up. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I forget. I can't even find where I wrote down what the damn TikTok it was, but it pretty much was, I think it was like Lisa Frank Exposed. I think that was a TikTok account. And it's where he tries to prove that his dad is the real Lisa Frank, showing his artwork, showing artwork from Lisa and saying that she's not a real artist. Babe, no one, including Lisa Frank, I don't think has ever said she drew that shit. People assume Lisa Frank drew those stuff, which I understand why people would assume that. But Lisa never is. You're acting like would go like you're exposing something like Lisa went on some tour saying that she is the designer of Lisa Frank Inc. That was never hidden that they had designers. None of this stuff was hidden. So all you're exposing is your fractured relationship with your family, and that you guys seriously need to seek therapy.
Yeah.
That's what you're exposing.
And just to be clear, like, even you wonder why Gianni Versace is still very much a company, and Donatella's not the one drawing.
No.
Gianni, God rest his soul, he's not the one drawing. There are plenty of, that is quite literally how fashion houses work, is that other people are lead designers. And then you have a team
Devil
of
Wears
other
Prada.
designers.
Anna Wintour.
Yeah, you have a team of like other designers underneath them. Multiple people draw sketches, and then that's part. These people are well aware that they are drawing for Versace, for Dolce and Gabbana. Yeah. That is the point of them. There is no way that you can draw, manufacture, distribute all of everything all in one. You can Lisa had it right. You can have an idea in your mind.
She's the Steve Jobs of colorful school supplies for children. She came up with the concept, and she hired someone to execute it.
Exactly.
That's all big business is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Surely you don't think
that's not new.
Yeah, surely you don't think Jeff Bezos is in there making and working everything, shipping everything with Amazon. You don't think he's driving those trucks.
No, yeah. Steve Jobs, he couldn't program or put together an iPhone. He's no longer with us. So that's one reason why. But he was never did do any of that. He had an engineer doing all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was his idea. It was his concept. And so was Lisa Frank.
Yep.
Okay. And that moves me into, okay, so I feel like this is what we were talking about, where this has levels now. Like, I feel like we've done a lot of Lisa Frank defending, because there's a portion of it where I do feel like needs defense, but we've acknowledged that she also has not just James, but Lisa, the employees have said Lisa was also not that great. Also
Exactly.
emotionally manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like I think she would do like a lot of love bombing. That was like Lisa's thing. But then she knew how to take that same, like you wanted to get that approval
Mm-hmm.
from Lisa. And so it goes into like more current day, like around 2016. James is gone. He's no longer running the day-to-day, but like Lisa was used to James running the day-to-day. Like she did need that man. So we acknowledge that man was important in some capacity as well. Yep. But the company kind of goes downhill.
Yep.
Then she starts kind of like licensing out her name.
Yeah.
And so then we have these millennials come along who have the nostalgia, who are the small business owner. And it was specifically the makeup brand Glamour Dolls. So there was a makeup company called Glamour Dolls run by best friend pair, Jessica and Peter. And it was, unlike James, this was the worst business decision of their lives when it came to joining forces with Lisa Frank, because it literally deteriorated their company, and in a big fucking way. Like they had this amazing up and coming vegan based makeup company, and their brand really kind of was reminiscent of like the bold, bright, beautiful colors of Lisa Frank. And so when they were trying to figure out who they could collaborate with, that kind of popped into their head. And so they kind of did research to see, is this company even still around? And after finding random numbers and email addresses, they finally get in contact. Peter gets in contact with Lisa Frank. And she's on board. Because Lisa, she's Steve Jobs. She knows a good idea when she fucking sees it.
100%.
And they're so excited. And like any tragic story, it starts really well and then it ends horribly. And this, again, they're a small business. They don't have the money to fund this. So they go to a place called Kickstarter, which gets people who are going to consume the products to help put their money, invest in it to get it going. And Lisa Frank is all excited about this Kickstarter. They're like, okay, they go to the Kickstarter. Lisa Frank goes to the Kickstarter office with these two.
Oh boy.
And it also, like, there were some red flags they said that they ignored. And they have 100%. They did. They said that they ignored the Google searches that kind of said that she's not the best boss and the lawsuits. But they were so excited. I get it. Like, this is Lisa fucking Frank. How bad could it really be?
And when you have a vision and you want to work with somebody so bad, and like we even talked about before we started recording about like getting your podcast off the floor and like things like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to see like this may not be the best because it could be such a big break for me.
Yeah.
Like that's like Dear Media or somebody coming to me and being like, we are interested in your podcast. We want to like, do this and supply you with this, and this. And then I look into it and it's like, maybe Dear Media. And I'm just using Dear Media as an example. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not saying that happened.
Yeah, please absolutely still send me email if you're interested. But like, I'm just using that as an example. Like, and I'm just like, ugh, and I continue to go forward. It can be exhausting. And so again, you act, okay, on top of doing content creation, on top of, getting your podcast, which is a business within itself, off the floor. It can be exhausting, and you're like, I just want to like, when is my big break going to be? When is my break going to be? So I get them. I
completely understand why they did what they did. And it is unfortunate because then this is what comes like the side that I feel like a lot of people did see of Lisa, which is that like what kind of got her to be the big company that she's had, that she's ruthless. She is ruthless. And she ends up kind of really fucking these small business owners over in a big way, not just like with, in my opinion, seeing an idea and I don't know if it was in the beginning or along the way, being like, I'm going to do this on a bigger and better scale without these small potatoes. Because that's what she went and did with Morphe. And but the thing is, I feel like in order to be able to do that, because at that point the company wasn't as big as it was, because this is 2016. Like they were a shell of the brand they used to be. They're having this small business who had to get a Kickstarter to be able to finance this project, pay her a royalty of 15%, which is too much. If you ever watch Shark Tank, not even Mr. Wonderful would try to pull that shit. And then also they have to like pay her every year $100,000. And then it kept going up and up to a point where I think that they ended up paying her without any product ever going out about $800,000. That is crazy. So they pretty much had to use all of the Kickstarter money to pay Lisa Frank. And they never got a product out because Lisa, every time that she kind of pulled James.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Every time they would show her a design idea. So sorry, but we actually end up losing Selle. We had some technical difficulties when we first started recording where we had to record on Zoom instead of what I normally would record on, which is Podcastle. So we're going to actually just end the episode without her. So we're going to wrap up the rest of it. We were almost done anyway, so that's totally fine. Where we left off. So we were just leaving off on the part where Lisa Frank, this is not where we get into Lisa Frank and how she can be a little bit diabolical, like the side of where her employees saw her and even a side of where James saw her. So she takes, in my opinion, and I think this is where Zelle's opinion too, before she left us, that Lisa Frank took advantage of this company. I don't necessarily think that she had intentions on doing this, but I absolutely think that at some point she was like, I love this idea, but I feel like I can make this idea bigger with someone else. And I think that in order to back this idea, she did need them. And I think that she absolutely used them for the money that they would be giving her. And she stonewalled them because she would, every time that they would do a revision, and I think she learned this from James to agree with this tactic. Every time that they would submit a revision of a makeup bag or a makeup brush, she would have another thing that they would have to add on to a point where they had done every modification that they could possibly do. And then she would just have them start all over. And I think she kept doing this to stall and get more money because at the end of the day, she ended up getting like $800,000. That's an absolutely insane amount of money to get from somebody. And then they never, ever got to put out the product. And on top of that, they alienated the people that backed them, the people on the Kickstarter. So they have a Kickstarter. They have a deadline of where these people are going to get this product, and then they never get it. And then on top of that, now the people that the fan base that they did acquire think that they're scamming, that this company, not Lisa Frank, that this company Glamour Dolls is scamming their audience, and that there was never an intention on getting products, and that couldn't have been further from the case. But they're such a small business, still wanting to keep Lisa happy, still thinking that this collaboration was going to happen, didn't like throw Lisa Frank under the bus, but they kind of ate it and they just didn't say anything. I don't think that was maybe in retrospect, I guess hindsight is 2020, but I mean, I definitely think that they should have said something. But again, they're scared. They're a small business. They don't want to upset Lisa because she's already volatile. And it seems like with any move that they made, she was like about to just, jump ship. And they really had put so much money at that point into it that I feel like they were just really in way too deep. And on top of that, not only did they not have a product to give their customers, at a certain point, Lisa was putting division between the partnership between Peter and Jessica because for some reason, Lisa just was not vibing. She was not fucking with Jessica. And I don't know if it's just one of those things where not everybody is a girl's girl. And Lisa might have been intimidated by someone who because in Jessica's point of view or her POV was that she thought that her and Lisa would get along so amazingly because Lisa would see herself, younger version of her, which probably is what Lisa saw and did not like that. Maybe found that as a threat. And it was very quick within that relationship between Glamour Dolls and Lisa Frank that Lisa Frank was very clear that if they were going to be having any type of conversation, Jessica was not to be involved in the conversation, which ended up leading into a division with Peter, Jessica, and Lisa. And then at a certain point when there was no product there was essentially no partnership between Jessica and Peter, Lisa pulls out completely, leaving them with nothing, leaving them with empty promises and no product shipment fulfillment to the customers, the people that invested in the Kickstarter. So people started writing letters to Jessica's family, saying that they were fraudsters, like to her mother. Jessica during that time was getting married, not to Peter. They were just friends, but she had a boyfriend, then fiance, then turned husband. And during that time they get married. And everyone's thinking of that. Oh no, all this money that they gave to the Kickstarter, she went to use to get married. And all the while, still, they did not throw Lisa Frank under the bus. But unbeknownst to them, unbeknownst to Peter and Jessica, Lisa Frank, Lisa Frank Inc. was definitely throwing glamour dolls under the bus hard. They are essentially saying they had nothing to do. Lisa Frank had nothing to do with the Kickstarter, had nothing to do with the products not being fulfilled, almost to a point where Lisa was making it seem like they were being defrauded too. It was a whole thing. So at the end of the day, this unfortunately left Peter and Jessica with no business because Jessica left the business, no money. Jessica went bankrupt. She filed for bankruptcy. Peter with only $10 in his bank account and living with his now friend. When their business, before entering into this business partnership with Lisa Frank, was thriving. They weren't making a shit ton of money, but they were making a livable amount of money. And now they had nothing. They had nothing, no product, no reputation. It was over for them, and they're still recovering. So this documentary is literally their only step forward in some type of redemption. Now, I hope that this documentary does give them some type of either closure or some type of opening to start anew. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if that would look like a partnership with them again. I hope at least helps them resolve their fractured relationship, because it still seems like they both have a lot of love and they both are aware of what caused that division. But I'm hoping that they come out with maybe a new makeup line or they revive glamour dolls, because it was very clear that they had a good product. They just had a bad business partnering. So I think that they've learned a really, really hard and expensive lesson, but I do think that there would be hope, because it seemed like they had a good product and they had great ideas. So hopefully they did end up suing Lisa Frank, and there's according to the documentary, they still are in litigation. A lot of what they sued Lisa for did get dismissed, but they still have a basis case. So I think it's ongoing. Hopefully that gets resolved soon. So, and I personally think that they are owed at least that Kickstarter money back. Some of it, like they got, that's ridiculous. And also Lisa ends up taking the same designs that she was making them redo and going ahead and partnering with Morphe, because again, in that contract that they signed, that horrible, horrible contract that they signed with Lisa Frank, they assigned away their design rights. So Lisa was legally allowed to use those same ideas, the same ideas that she made them redo and go do it with another company. Apparently it didn't do that well, because they didn't use quality product, which is why, honestly, I feel like Lisa should have not been so greedy, which is funny because the title of the this is the podcast. The title of the documentary is called Glittering Creative. She wasn't so greedy. I actually think that this really could have been an amazing opportunity for a really legitimate rebrand for the company and a more long lasting. And she went for a money grab. And I'm sure they made a lot of money with that collaboration with Morphe, but the reviews on the actual product was shit. So yeah, I guess I enjoy that money, I guess. This is not the first and only time that Lisa would go on to kind of slight a small business. So then we meet a YouTuber who came up with, she's an artist in LA, and she was featured in magazines like IKEA, Good Homes. She was on the Today Show. Her name is Amina. She took her LA loft and turned it into what she called Cloud Land. It literally looks like what you would think Lisa Frank would live like when she was in her early 20s, like if she had an apartment. Like that's what it would look like. Just exactly the bright colors, just rainbows, it looks like you threw up Lisa Frank in this woman's apartment, but she did it all herself. It was all her original designs, concepts, and everything. And she loved Lisa Frank, and she got the attention of Lisa Frank, at least on Instagram. Lisa Frank, the official Instagram account, ended up friending her, and they would DM, Lisa Frank would, or at least whoever was behind Lisa Frank's Instagram account would literally tell this woman how much they admired their work. And then Amina says around 2018, it just stopped. The communication stopped. And that she thought was kind of weird, but then it made sense because then she would get a flurry of messages adding her, saying like, oh, congratulations on your collaboration with Lisa Frank. And it turns out Lisa Frank partnered with Hotel.com to do a like pop-up. You can stay in this apartment that's Lisa Frank, in like a Lisa Frank apartment pop-up. But if you do like the side-by-side comparison of this pop-up design and Amina's apartment, which is Cloudland, it looks almost identical. Like it definitely seems inspired. And one could argue that Amina is inspired by Lisa Frank, which I definitely think she was. But the fact that Lisa Frank and her, they have communication, and Lisa Frank has acknowledged her on some level. And also the fact that the apartment that they were using for this pop-up was literally the same owners as Amina's apartment owner, because it was the apartment complex across the street, but it was the same owners. I mean, come on, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like this does seem like Lisa Frank. It kind of seems like Amina was inspired by Lisa Frank, and then Lisa Frank was inspired by Amina, and it's just this very layering effect. But I think that Lisa Frank owed credit to Amina, because it seems like what she did was she saw another idea similarly with like glamour dolls and said, let me suck all of the inspiration from these smaller creators that will never be able to hold me accountable, take their ideas, and then leave them in the fucking dust. And that is exactly what she does to Amina. And when Amina tries to call them out, Lisa Frank out, Lisa Frank essentially goes cold, goes dark. And then like, at a certain point, Amina's like, I'm not going to take this. Like, this is ridiculous. She starts being vocal, which I'm really happy she was. And I'm glad that also people recognize that Lisa Frank did rip her off. And then especially she started getting vocal with, during the pandemic, there was the Black Lives Matter movement. And Lisa Frank really took, in Amina's point of view, the opportunity to be a performative ally. And she says that because then when Amina calls Lisa Frank out for taking a Black creator's inspiration and idea and giving them no credit, Lisa Frank then goes on to publicly drag Amina, saying that it is horrible that she's making the Black Lives Matter movement about her. That's a little sus. Like, Lisa, don't do that, bitch. Don't do that. Okay? Because if someone is, you can't sit there and say that you are an ally, and then when you are confronted with, and maybe this wasn't your intention, taking from the very community you say you're trying to uplift, and then when that person calls you out on it, then saying that they're making it about them, you can't, like, which one is it, babes? It's not making sense to me. So, like Zell and I said earlier, there are certain points where I have to defend Lisa on. Lisa absolutely created Lisa Frank. That was her concept. That was her company. So I'm going to defend her when someone like James, her ex-husband, wants to take sole credit for creating Lisa Frank. No, you fucking didn't. You helped to make the company what it was, but you cannot take full credit for it. And you cannot act as if this woman just like fell into it. That was her baby. That was her concept. So I'm going to defend her on that. But, and then also when it comes to her children and her love for her children, in my opinion, I think she had love for her children. I think that James, her husband, absolutely interfered and used her love of her children against her when he didn't get his way with getting 49 or keeping 49% of her company. Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean that bitch is perfect. And it doesn't mean I don't think that she has some diabolical elements or qualities to her. I absolutely think she does. I think a lot of times when people have successful companies like that, big businesses, they have a little ruthlessness in it within them. And I don't think Lisa Frank is the exception to that. So I don't think Lisa Frank is a victim at all or I don't think that she is a victim. I think the only victim in the situation is anybody that's really was underneath the workers, the employees, the smaller business owners. Those are the people I find to be the victims, if anything. Even her children, even Hunter, although I don't agree with his perspective, I do think that he is a victim of his circumstances. I think that Lisa is not a victim, but she definitely does deserve to have credit for where credit is due. And James can go to hell. Okay? James can go to absolute hell because there ain't no redeeming qualities about that man. And that's my fucking opinion. But I was pleasantly surprised by how complicated Lisa Frank Inc. and the history of that was. Like like I said, I bought the products. I love the products. I still love the products. The products didn't do anything. Okay. But I find oftentimes the things that made me happy, I'm finding out whether it be Nickelodeon, now Lisa Frank. I even watched a documentary on Barney and fucking Friends. Like there is somehow always some dark element behind these joys programs or things that are geared toward children. And it's just the common themes are bad adults. That's what it is. But thank you so very much. I'm so sorry that we lost Selle at the very end. We were already almost done. So we got her for most of it. And she was sorry that she couldn't stay on. But, this technical difficulties, like we kind of talked about a little bit at the top. I don't know if I'm going to include that part, but that's just what it is. And we ran with it. And I still think that we got a lot covered when she was here. And I really enjoyed this documentary. I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed the editing of it. I loved that all of the confessionals had a different color pop that had, and the person that was in the confessional matched the backdrop. Like you had like the orange, the purple, the blue. It was so Lisa Frank. The Prime did an amazing deep dive of Lisa Frank. I wish and I do hope, like Selle and I talked about earlier, that Lisa will at some point speak out, because I'd be super interested to hear from Lisa, and I would really want to hear from Forrest, because I feel like Forrest is the person that's going to really like crack this case open on what really went down in the Lisa Frank / James Green household. Because I don't think we're going to get it from Dear Hunter. No, sirree. Well, thank you so much for listening. And next week, we are going to be popping off with doing another documentary. So next week, we're going to be popping off with recapping the documentary that's going to be premiering. It's a 90-minute documentary on Peacock called Diddy, The Making of Bad Boy. And joining me to pop off is going to be my friend Curtis. And I just know that Curtis is going to have a lot to say about the Diddler. So I'm so looking forward to talking to Curtis about that. And then also, I feel like our poll question for this week should be, who do you think is the real Lisa Frank? Will the real Lisa Frank please stand up? Do you think it is the actual Lisa Frank, or do you think that it is her husband or ex-husband, James Green? Or is it both? Who's the real Lisa Frank? Oh, don't forget to do all the things. So if you're if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the notification bell, subscribe, like, comment. I want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on anything you would like me to pop off on, let me know. You can always email the pod at piapopcultureguru@gmail.com. All of that will be found in the show notes. Also don't forget to follow Selle. Her socials will be also listed in the description. Her podcast is Who Asked Me, so is her handle. So you can find her on all socials that way. And again, it'll be in the show notes. Yeah, it was a great episode. I was so happy to talk to Zell. She cracks me the fuck up. So thank you for her for stopping by the pod. And what does Pia always say? Oh, yeah. Pop off.